So I'm in Los Gatos, California, and I'm trying to interview merchants about the Black Lives Matter protest. And so I see this merchant who's hanging out outside his establishment, and I ask him, "Hey, I was thinking about, I'm going about interviewing merchants about the protest, and what I try to do is I try to create a bridge of communication between people. And since there's a misunderstanding, I think there might be a misunderstanding about why some merchants, not all merchants, are bordering up their establishments. And this particular gentleman told me that, well, the reason why he's doing it is because his windows are custom made, and he doesn't want anything to happen to them. And when I was at the protest, they had mentioned the protesters. They were having speeches. One of the leaders of the protest stated that before they marched down Santa Cruz Avenue, that all the merchants care about are their pane glass windows. They don't care about George Floyd. Um, and I spoke to some merchants, and they had told me that it wasn't the fact that their windows, not all of them were boarded up, and they had mentioned that that was something that the landlords had done, and that they had come to work and found that their windows were boarded up. It wasn't their choice. So I don't know. That's what they said. I guess I take them by their word. But the feelings from the protesters was that, you know, basically they weren't being trusted. It gave them the impression that um, the uh, merchants weren't on their side, and that they were afraid that the protesters were bringing a bad element to Los Gatos. That's the protester side of the story. And but uh, there were merchants that, even though their uh, windows were boarded up, they did have signs of Black Lives Matter on the boarded up windows, or they had peace and love signs saying that they supported them. They supported the march. So maybe it was partly, for some, the landlord's decision, and to show their solidarity, they decided to write words of support to the protesters on the wood, on the boards, the boarded up windows. And not everybody did that. Some had boarded up windows that had no words of support. Um, so I'm talking to this merchant, and he goes, so I was thinking about, what I do as an artist is I try to create a bridge of communication, so that people can understand how you feel about one another, and so there's no misunderstanding. So this particular merchant says to me, he says, and he kind of has a smirk on his face. He says, "Do you know what happened to Germany?" And I'm like, the kind of question came out of nowhere, and I'm a person of color, so I'm thinking, where is this? Is this about me being black? If it would have been, if I was white, would he have asked me that same question? Do you know what happened to Germany? So I'm thinking, where is this going? Is this about White Lives Matter? And If I was a white artist, would it have been about white lives? Would it have been about white lives matter, or would we have had a another conversation? Because not all black people think alike. Not all black nationalist movements have the same ideology. Again, SNCC had their ideology. The Black Panthers had their ideology. The NAACP had their ideology, and sometimes those ideologies coincided, and sometimes they didn't. So I said, okay, Germany. What about Germany? He goes, do you know your history? I go, so I guess he's asking me, do I know the history of Germany? And I said, well, are you talking to me about the Ottoman Empire, pre-Germany? What do you mean? He goes, no, I'm talking about what happened to Germany after the First World War. And I go, oh, yeah, okay. Germany, Germany was devastated after the First World War. And he goes, yep. And he had this smile on his face. Like, you see, yeah, kind of like we suffered. We suffer too. So basically, this is an all lives matter moment. He was just trying to say, hey, you suffer, but we suffer too. But okay, where's the love? Where's the hug? I mean, okay, you suffered. I'm sorry you suffered, but is it just that you don't know how to say? You don't know what else to say to black people, but all lives matter, rather than like, I'm sorry that you're suffering. I mean, that would be the most. That would be the nicest thing to say is, oh man, I'm very sorry that George Floyd died. Not one person has said that to me that is a proponent of all lives matter. Maybe they don't know how to talk to black people. Maybe they don't know the right words to say to console the black community. Like, I'm very sorry for your loss. Maybe people can't deal with pain and suffering. Maybe they don't know how to communicate their feelings, because maybe it brings up the fact that they have yet to deal with their own pain and suffering. So it was very awkward discussion. So I said, "Do you?" I said, yes. I know what happened after Germany. That Germany was devastated after World War One. And he goes, yes, they were. So I was like, God damn, this is about me being black, him being German. Little did he know that my great great grandparents were freaking Anglo Saxons, right? And that we're all part of the same family. That human beings started with a woman and a man, and we're all extended family. So what is this? What is this? I could be more German than he is. Just that maybe I have a little bit more pigmentation than he does, right? So I said, yeah, I know that Germany was devastated, and so I started thinking, okay, what if what if his great grandfather after World War One was standing in the rubble of what was once Germany, and I walked up to his great. Oh, thank you very much. I walked up to his great grandfather in the rubble, looked his great grandfather, dead in his eyes, and I said to him, "Black Lives Matter." How do you think his grandfather would have felt? His great grandfather would have felt if I would have just said, "Black Lives Matter." Instead of giving his grandfather a hug and telling him, "I am so sorry that you lost your family, your home, your livelihood." Maybe it's just that people don't know how to console one another. Because if if I understand your pain, that means I have to get in touch with my own pain and suffering, so I can have the compassion enough to sympathize with what you're going through. What I would have to have the ability to sympathize with his great grandfather enough to be able to say to him, I know I've been through this before. I've suffered as you suffered. I'm so sorry for your loss. So I think it's about people don't really know what to say. They have no idea what to say to people that are suffering, because that means if if they're not in touch with their own suffering, they can't have empathy. I think that's what it's about. I think that's why people say all lives matter, because they have yet to deal with their own suffering to have the empathy enough to embrace somebody else's suffering. They just don't know what to say.